regular dentistry. People come in, oh, doctor, I've got a toothache, can you fix that? You haven't had to deal with anyone that got shrapnel to the side of their face. Because guess what? When you're a dentist, everything above the shoulders is yours. So if somebody gets shrapnel embedded in the side of their head, you could actually be called in as an Air Force dentist. You're not just like Dr. whatever, who has his little private dental practice. You're an Air Force dental practitioner. You're going to be trained to remove that shrapnel from the side of so-and-so's head. So you're trained to do a lot more than a regular dentist is. And dentists take pride in this stuff. If there's an MD, no, hey, that's fine. No, I got that. You know, and that's what they do. But you know, those are the, you need to be ready to do that before they send you over there. So you're gonna have to be a category A dentist before you can get set, and that's not gonna happen until after 4 years, and that's after your initial commitment. So that's just to put it in perspective. Technically, I guess if aliens came down and something and they needed like combat dentistry or something, and there was a shortage of dentists, then yeah, maybe, but it's probably not gonna happen.
So when I first started recruiting, maybe the first time I came to speak with the AED, I was telling those future doctors about deployment. I'm like, look, you got 4 years of med school and at least maybe 3 years of residency. So my point was maybe we would be out of all that mess. I stopped saying that for obvious reasons. It's been a long time now. So my answer to it, on at least the medical side, is, you know, you could deploy. We can deploy. We can get called and deploy. The likelihood of deploying for a medical side, I think, all lies in your specialty. Of course, if your interests are in orthopedic surgeon or neurology, something like that, of course your chances would rise. If you're into maybe peds or OB, you know, what are you going to do with that? All military members can deploy. So, I don't know what else things get.
Didn't you mention before, I think that even if you do get deployed, like you're not going to be fighting the front line, you're going to be like still working on people kind of thing.
Most definitely. You are, even my old career field was working on aircraft. When I deploy, I go to work on aircraft for recruit. You were med.
Yeah,
He's deployed, he's probably doing med stuff. But every Air Force member deployed is doing what they're trained to do.
but it's not what you think it is. I mean, even as a combat medic, I mean, my job is to go out and treat combat injuries and do that kind of stuff. It's not like what you're out there and you're thinking fire and bushes and bullets flying over your head. No, combat medic, what you do is you treat combat injuries. That doesn't mean I'm in combat. That just means that I'm not a medic that works in a hospital. I was one of the 4 deployed medics that worked in a medical control center. So when they came off the truck, I would triage them and give them life-saving measures so I can package them and send them on to a higher echelon facility. But there was no combat involved. I was trained in combat, but if there ever came a time when Doc had to pick up a gun and start shooting, it's pretty much over at that point. I mean, you might as well just lay down and say, hey, it's been fun.
Our docs and medical personnel that are deploying now are doing some like fantastic stuff. We just went to a conference and they were telling us the story, and we all had tears in our eyes. At one of these bases, they have a helipad where the helicopters were coming in with wounded soldiers. And in between the helipad and the medical facility, there's this big tunnel, like you might see on a football field. It's like one of those inflatable tunnels. And inside the tunnel, it's like laced with a huge U.S. flag. So the thing is huge. They call it the Hero Highway, or
Yeah, it's Heroes
Hallway
Highway.
of Heroes.
There's Heroes Highway.
The stats are just unbelievable. So if a wounded soldier is pushed underneath this tunnel, currently they have a 98% chance of survival. And so with technology and you know, our medical personnel, I mean, they're just doing fabulous things compared to, you know, not too long ago, like Vietnam, the rates were not that high. It's just really impressive. And we also have now these flying hospitals. So as a medical doc, when you're deployed to an area like this, that place would be used to like stabilize the patient. And then of course they'd stick them on these mobile hospitals. I don't know if you've seen this latest commercial. Transformer. Most of it doesn't look anything like the Air Force, but the plane itself, the inside with the mobile hospital, amazing stuff we do, and it's just amazing.
There's ones that say it's not just science fiction. Have you guys seen those? It's not just science fiction. They're trying to show you what you see, like science fiction stuff, like the Transformer movies and like the space age, Star Wars type stuff, and then they just kind of morph it into what we actually really do. Like people don't realize that we have these little planes and we can go anywhere on the planet, and we can spy on people. We can, drop bombs on people, and literally, I got a story from one of the guys that came back from overseas that was doing my job, and I think he still does it. I'm a recruiter now. But I guess they had a sniper that was up on the side of this water tower, and they couldn't find this guy. I mean, he was on this little trackway on this, way up on this water tower, and he would shoot through the little grating, so you couldn't even see him. But he's like taking pop shots at people, and they could not find this guy. They had, highly trained people that could not find this guy. One person had this whole command pinned down because people were afraid to go outside because you don't know where the shot's coming from. Well, they sent this Air Force Predator over. Well, this thing's got heat sinking, it's got infrared and all this other stuff, and they saw this little dot on the side of that water tower, that little heat signature. They're like, yeah, we took care of it. And and that's some guy back in Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, took this guy out in Iraq. Playing video games. Yeah, it was done. But it's not science fiction. That's what we do. And that when you see that little transformer thing where it shows this futuristic jet plane comes in, and there's some kind of chaos, and a hurricane or something came through, and this bridge is all blown up, and this plane morphs and comes down and lands, and all these Air Force guys come out in these space age looking suits. That's what I used to do. I didn't have a space age suit and a fancy plane. But when it takes back off and it transforms and then shows what we really do, that's the mobile hospitals. That's what I used to work in. You could haul like 60 patients inside the sequence for a case of 35 on these litters like that, and it's just basically a flying hospital. That's what I used to do.
How do the residencies work? You have to do a residency through the Air Force, or can you do a residency somewhere else?
Part of our program is we are going to ask you to apply to an Air Force residency. At no point will the Air Force ever force you or strong-arm you into a residency. As I say that, the Air Force would never promise you a residency either. The reason I say that is because I meet a lot of people and they're like, yeah, Sergeant, I'm going to be a neurologist. And I said, all right, well, great. And I look at the MCAT and it's like a 24, and I'm kind of like, oh, you might get a neurologist. Of course, they go through med school and find out how hard it is, and then they graduate maybe bottom half of their class. Chances are they're not going to be a neurologist as a civilian, and we're sure not going to promise it to be either. So when I say that, it's competitive. It's what you bring to the table, just like getting into med school, getting into our program. I mean, everything's competitive. So we'll never strong arm you, but we're not going to promise you one either. But in the years past, I would say about 75% matched with the Air Force. The results of the Air Force match comes out in December, which is about 3 months before the civilian match. The remaining people can go and they get matched with the civilian. Unfortunately, we have a few each year that don't match at all. And what we do in these situations is we give them a chance to do a 1-year internship. They're either going to do it in family medicine, pediatrics, OB, internal medicine, or flight medicine. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about flight medicine. And then they're allowed to apply again for the match that next year. You can defer to a civilian residency.
So if you don't take the Air Force residency 3 months prior, usually those get taken by other people who are qualified. And normally, if you don't choose to be it, you'll have to do. Or you'll either have to do one that you're not totally interested in.
Well, no. I mean, usually the way the match works, and I kind of learned a little bit about this myself, because I thought when you guys applied for the match, you're doing like, I want to do peds and OB, and you just kind of throw a bunch. From what I understand, they're not like that anymore. I don't know if you used to be able to do that, but now it's like peds, but just in different locations. So if you match with the Air Force for peds, they're going to kind of wonder why you're not wanting to accept it, for one. At least you're in our program and they're going to say, well, you're in the Air Force, Force, why don't you want to do our residency? But you can defer to the civilian ones. The only problem with that is if you turn down Air Force and you don't get matched with the civilian, then you're kind of out of luck. And then you're right into that 1-year waiting period. A little bit about our residencies. There's only 2 of our residencies that aren't attached to some kind of civilian education system anyway. They're both in family practice, and I think it's just due to the location of where these places are. But all of our other teaching facilities are attached, so like, say the one in California would be attached to University of California school system. So you're going to do some of your time in a civilian hospital with regular college students or regular residents. The only thing is that you're in the Air Force. You're not going to be trained to any less than the standard. In fact, Air Force and military residencies, you're actually going to get a little more training than your average civilian resident because they're going to throw in all the wartime possibilities that could happen. So you're going to get a little more training as a military resident. Big difference in the 2, if you go through a military residency, you're going to be on active duty status. You're going to be receiving captain's pay, full medical and dental payment, insurance. If you go to civilian residency, you're going to be subject to whatever that civilian residence is going to pay you. Military residency, you're going to gain time towards a possible retirement in 20 years. Civilian residency, you do not. But in either case, whether you do civilian or military residency, you're not incurring any more debt time. The only time you have debt is for your med school. So if you go through a military residency, you don't owe any more time. You're just going through a military residency. Like I answered your question?
Yes.
General residencies do the same way. I'm not sure as far as the curriculum goes, but when you go through dental residencies, and we also have a unique program called AED, I don't know if you guys are all familiar with Advanced Education in General Dentistry. But all of our training is scientific based. It's not pharmaceutical based. It's not equipment based. Like there's no GlaxoSmithKline coming in pushing their drugs and their equipment on the school, and they're forced to teach you in using that specific medication or that specific piece of equipment, which is what a lot of civilian residencies do. Air Force residencies are completely scientific based. You'll be using the latest equipment and you'll be using the latest procedures, independent of what any specific drug company says is the best or whatever. We go with what the FDA says is the best way to do it, and that's how we do it. So.
Questions?
This is kind of, someone should ask it. How much do you make after 4 years as compared if you work with Air Force and you're a civilian dentist?
On paper, not squat. When you look at it on paper, realistically, in real life, you're probably making more money. But that's the hardest part of this program, is helping people take the rose-colored glasses off. Because a lot of dental students are under this misconception that when they graduate from dental school, they're going to be able to go out and make $160,000 a year right off the bat. Not so much in half. First-year dentists typically, I'm not real familiar with this far down south, but I am familiar with the Raleigh area and around there. Typical starting salary is right around $85,000 to $90,000 a year starting out. You're very close to that with the Air Force. But there's things that you're going to have with the Air Force that you don't have. You're not going to have to pay for malpractice insurance. You're not going to have to pay for operating costs. You're not going to pay for supplies. You're not going to pay for salaries, any of that kind of stuff. It's pretty much a 40-hour work week in terms of practice. So you're making right around $80,000 a year to $85,000 a year to just come in Monday to Friday, and whatever the clinic hours are, it's clinic hours. It's 7 to 3, 8 to 4, whatever the clinics are Monday to Friday. That's what you work. So a lot of the civilian dentists, when they start out working for a dentist, they're going to be working 50 plus hours a week to get people in that chair. They give your boss money. The patients aren't really yours. They're yours by proxy. They're actually his patients.